just, and again, I gotta think about it. I'm pray about it a little bit, just because I want us to make sure what. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board for October the 18th, 2023, beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. The first thing I want to do is do our roll call. It's the first item on our agenda. Aniskevich.
Here.
Gippin.
Here.
Peoples. Here. Lewis.
Here.
Castle.
Here.
Costa.
Present.
Richards.
Here.
Reed. Miss Reed will be absent on tonight. We have our contracted auditor, Mr. Fields.
Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting held on October the 4th, 2023. Can I get a second?
Second.
Aniskevich?
Yes.
Gippin?
Yes.
Peebles?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move into item 3 on our agenda, which are our public comments. There'll be 30 minutes in total, 3 minutes per person. We ask that you please respect the board and the chambers as you make your comments, and we'll give way to public comment this time. Ms. Aniskevich.
There are none at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed to item 4 on our agenda as Mr. Fields and his report out. Mr. Fields, you're up.
Good evening, Board.
Evening.
My report out, the number of calls received, 8 auditor-related. However, there were 33 additional calls to HR for some reason. I've tried to figure out how to get that straightened out, but again, so, number of emails received, 29. Oh, thank you. Number of emails received, 29. In-person complaints, 0. There's still no office for me. Complaints turned over to APD since our last meeting was 5. A brief detail of the nature of those complaints. 2 complainants in the same incident claimed that the police showed up for an eviction. They were racist and rude. Another involved excessive force, where the complainant states that his hand was stomped after a vehicle pursuit. The hand required hospital treatment. Another complainant states that the police refused to arrest a drunk driver involved in an accident. The complainant feels that the drunk driver of that vehicle was somehow related to an ex-council person. And the last one, again, was police were rude. Status of any ongoing investigations into police misconduct from prior weeks, 0. Investigations completed and summary of findings. Complaints received were, well, not complaints, but the use of force investigations that were received were 28, and those are, I had a computer glitch today, well, this week, and Matt and I got it resolved today, so I had a huge email dump, which left these 28 use of force to be reviewed. Complaints taken over, none. Complaints inherited, none. Reviews conducted in the past week of police department policies, 0. Highlights concerning pattern areas. It seems that the majority of the complaints anymore, since I've taken over, involve police attitudes when they get to a scene, and the majority of the complaints indicate that some of the officers may need some additional sensitivity training. Community outreach, there's been none since our last meeting. I'm sorry. Preliminary recommendations for changes to police procedures, training, etc. Again, I'd state that there seems to be a need for additional sensitivity training, as I previously stated.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Mr. Field, you said you received 33 phone calls that went to HR for the Office of the Auditor?
I answered these calls, and they wanted HR.
Oh, so you were receiving HR calls?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the clarity. Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Any other questions for Mr. Fields?
No, I don't have a question. I just thought I might let the board know. Mr. Fields, I think it was a week ago Monday?
Monday, yes.
Yeah. Was it this Monday? No, a week ago Monday.
Yeah, a week ago Monday.
And Mr. Fields was kind enough to let me come to his office and review the completed reports that had been received back from the police department, both citizen complaints and use of force, and we had a chance to talk about them, which was really useful, and I really appreciated that, and it was and very helpful. I did not want to either copy those or the reports or have them sent to me, which is why I went to his office. But I think Mr. Fields, I hope you think it was a useful.
It was very useful and very productive.
As I did.
Yes.
And
Stop by anytime.
well, I will do it again. Although what I was going to say is this: to me, it just it reinforced the idea that I have had, that I think it will be a useful thing if a subcommittee of the board, whether it's the existing subcommittee or something else that we form, would be having that more in-depth, ongoing opportunity to meet with Mr. Fields and go over the documents themselves. They're not necessarily easy to interpret, I can say that. They're not, some are very clear, some are not. They're not all in the same format, but it's a useful thing. And I really would like to put that out, to think about further about establishing that process on an ongoing thing, because I think it will be valuable. And then if there are things if there are things that really ought to be considered by the full board, that's a way of doing a kind of an initial screen. So I would just like to suggest it. In the meantime, without going too far with Mr. Fields' time, I think it's a useful exercise to see these reports. And I do intend to come back. Maybe once you've got this new batch sort of ready to look at, I'll come back and
Okay, great.
Mr. Gippen, the committee that you're talking about, how much of this do you think governance folds into some of this?
I think it's different. I think it's a different function, different skill set.
And what would be the name of the committee?
Well, it could just be what did we call the new one we set up when we set it up? I mean, complaints, or I would say it isn't just complaints, but maybe it's investigations, something like that. But something that the purpose of which is to have that sort of ongoing direct view of the documents as they come back from the department, and opportunity to talk about it with Mr. Fields.
So is it more of a review committee?
Yeah, review committee. There you go. I don't know that the name is that important, but yeah. No, that's right. Review would be a good way to put it. Yeah.
All right. And what would you say, Mr. Gippen, would probably be the time or the estimated time that we enable such a committee?
Well, I think the sooner we do it, the better. I mean, I don't mind looking at these documents and having whatever conversation I have, sort of ad hoc. I mean, any member could. But I think the sooner that we've got something like that in place, we'll be better able to manage the flow then between its department to Mr. Fields, and then in some fashion it needs to come here. So it's a way of sort of managing that flow, and the sooner we do it, the better. I would think.
Okay. How long were you at Mr. Fields' office reviewing?
Hour and a half.
About an hour and a half.
But there was a backlog. There were what, about 20 documents I looked at?
Yes. I might add that I would welcome that type of a situation also. It would be good for me too.
So if in the event we had a group of board members that was meeting in essence to, I guess, do exactly this function, do you anticipate, or I guess I'm just curious if that could occur on a monthly basis, bi-monthly, or how often the body might need to?
Well, minimally bi-weekly, bi-monthly. I mean, I think it, between every other, it ought to be done in time for every meeting, because conceivably, there would be a report back that ought to go further, that ought to come to the board. One of the ones I looked at, I think should, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know which one I'm talking about. So I would think at least every other week, if not weekly. It depends on the flow, but every other week, probably.
And this was, you went over there, was it throughout, during the course day, or was this an afternoon, evening?
No, it was around, 11:30.
11 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that it was, when Mr. Fields had his regular business.
Is there any board member that's interested? in
Well,
serving?
obviously I am, but yeah.
I am as well. I think me and Gibbon, between you and myself and Mr. Fields, I think that's probably more than enough. Or
do it,
Mr.
yeah.
Peoples?
There we go. Well,
Okay.
all right, I'll move that we establish a review subcommittee then.
I'll second. Anskevich,
Yes.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Peoples,
Yes.
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Castle,
No.
Costa,
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can we have a discussion?
It's been
Oh,
passed.
sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Can I say, if I might, sort of as a carryover from what Mr. Peoples was previously the chair of the investigatives, whatever that subcommittee was. So I would suggest that he be the chair of this review subcommittee, if I'll so move.
I'll second. Anskevich,
No.
Gibbon,
Yes.
Peoples,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Castle,
Yes.
Costa,
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Motion passes.
You didn't vote, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you. Oh, I would ask Mr. Peoples if you can schedule these throughout the day. That would be much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, Mr. Fields?
No.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Fields in his report out?
Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Mr.
I feel
Fields.
like every time that we come back and that we meet together, your report outs are more and more comprehensive, and you can tell that you're getting a better understanding and a sense of like the workflow. So
I am.
appreciate everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move into item number 5 on our agenda, which is our subcommittee report out. We'll start off with governance and Mr. Gibbon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, with Ms. Reed unfortunately having to be absent tonight, I think we should, continue to leave the rules legislation on the table. Maybe I should add, my expectation is that we may discuss it further in governance next week, but we should not take it up today. The only other item that I would bring up, we've had the continuing discussion about the focus of topics that we would, review in depth, looking to the report next year. And that's what we spent our time in governance on the other evening. And again, very productive, I thought, a lot of discussion. And Mr. Costa and I had met before then, I think, no, after then, I guess.
Earlier that day.
Earlier in the day, that's right. Long day. We had met with Professor Brant Lee's class at the law school, as we'd been talking about doing very, very productive session. I mean, it's just, among other things, these are just great young people. But the way there are 4 groups, and the way they distributed their topics, they're a little different than the way our tentative phrasing would be, but but they map onto ours. You know, so I think from the conversation, you know, and the questions that they had, we saw how really each of those groups then should be able to give us the benefit of some particularly outside research that we would not be able to do so easily, you know, really on all of the topics that we're concerned with. So that was very productive, and I think it will facilitate the review process. That said, a lot of our conversation was, again, trying to determine what topics we should recommend be focused on. We're still not ready to bring this as a motion to be formalized, but we will probably recommend a change from what had been previously put out in the document that was circulated. We still think that there should be no more than 5 focus topics, just in terms of the resources we have. But taking into account the suggestion that I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that we focus on data as just a topic, all right? Because it's large and it's so important to everything else we do. So adding that as a named topic, that would have left us with 6. So the product of the conversation was essentially that we think that it's in effect a combination, but of what we've called the department culture, and what we have been calling diversity, just for a word, okay, to be thought of in terms of everything from, you know, recruitment, hiring, training, but also goes to how does the department operate. So we thought that those could be combined without losing anything, and obviously they flow together because so much of, frankly, the concern that I think we have about the department culture, it's not just racially focused, but that's a big part of it.
So Ms. Gibbons, the 2 things you talked about kind of putting together is departmental culture and diversity?
Yes, sir.
/ diversity? All right.
That becomes one topic.
Gotcha.
Okay. That's where we are. So with that, the 5 topics would be, as we stand, still subject to discussion, and invite everybody to come join in that.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the FOP agreement. That one seems to be just clearly something we need to do. Use of force, complaint process, data, and then culture. And be thinking, please, everybody, because it's been said repeatedly since we started the conversation, people are going to have to be, board members are going to have to be taking these on. In committees, I don't think we're going to, we don't want to go outside the committee structure. But please, please, please be thinking about which of those you would want to work with, so that we can, I hope without too much more delay, actually get that in motion.
And out of these 5, you don't want to go over 5? Or are you trying to cut the number down? Are you looking?
We really think 5's as much as we can handle.
Okay, but I'm saying, are you looking to stay with the 5, or are you looking to lessen it?
No, probably, we think 5's doable.
Okay.
And all 5 of those topics seem to be ones that are both very important to deal with now, as opposed to down the line, some other years, some other reports, and that we would have the ability to do.
Okay.
Particularly, I mean, I think the assumption is that we will have auditor, deputy auditor, administrative assistant, you know, by the end of November. And even though they're going to have a whole lot else to do, that will be some assistance that we'll get.
Yeah. And so these 5 topics of focus are going on to the report out for next year.
Correct.
Correct. And we talk about data, you're meaning like the data that we receive, how we audit that data?
No, more broadly, I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably should have explained it. This idea really was originally Pastor Penfield's. She was at the meeting 2 meetings ago. Mm-hmm. It was really her idea. It was a really good one. But no, it's more looking at how does the department, what data does it collect? How does it collect it, in a sense, and potentially what data isn't it collecting that it potentially could? What is it doing with that data internally? And then what is it doing with that data internally, both, or externally, both in the sense of what's coming to broadly the board, thought of as the auditor and the board, and also publicly. In other words, what's the public seeing about this data, statistics of what the department's doing? And from the discussion, it seems like there's a great deal more which could be made available to the public. But it's that. How does the department do data?
Yep.
And what suggestions might we have concerning it?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Ms. Sanchez, I think along with that, Mr. Gippen, it's, because I remember when the police chief came in and he gave us all a notebook and had a bunch of data. I think the challenge is, I'm going back to something that Mr. Young had talked about when he was coming, was, the data has to be scrubbed, right? It has to be audited. Because a lot of the data that we saw, it was really good data from a perspective, right? But what we talked about is why, you got to always quantify why the data is good, right? And so I think along with that, as your team continues to build this out, I think also as we acquire and even looking at, to your point, some of the data, but also I think the data being audited and being able to look at it too might be a part of that process.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot of it. And I don't want to, a lot of it may be, and this is the hardest part, is figuring out, well, what data ought they to be getting and what ought they to be circulating. I mean, just conversation, we got those really excellent reports from the chief when he was here that one evening. Those didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And they could have. I mean, so there's a lot to do there. We think it's a very important topic and should be added.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, and this is not my plan on words, but there is a difference between the word should and the word could. So when you said looking at data that could be examined, or should it be, or could it be, looking at data that should be examined rather than could be examined.
Or just to combine the concepts, could and should. But
Okay.
yes, good point, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything else for Mr. Gippen?
that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gippen, and also Mr. Costa, Ms. Castle, for your service on the
And
government.
Mr. Chairman, my assumption is that we will again be meeting in sequence with HR, so that the meeting is probably going to be 4:45 at the main library next Wednesday.
Okay.
And again, all welcome. Ms. Reed's been coming, which has been very useful.
We got a lot to get through next Wednesday too, so the more people there, the better, to the extent possible.
Thank you. Next, item B under section 5 is Human Resources and Finance. That is Ms. Richards.
Human Resources did not meet in my absence, I believe. We do have with us tonight Shannon Thompson. She is an applicant for our administrative assistant position. She was fantastic in the interview. We've received her background check, and she has cleared everything. And we asked her to attend tonight to see if anyone had any specific questions for her and to see if she wanted us. So, yeah.
And everyone does have a copy of her background. Everyone's emailed a copy of her background check. Now, we could elect to go into executive session if anyone has any specific questions about what's in the background, or give everyone a chance to read it. But as you all know, the first person kind of canceled, said she was ill, and then decided she didn't want the job 10 days later. So, Miss Shannon is here. So that'll be up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to do that, or if you want to have an open interview here publicly. I don't know if you want to do that. That's why she's here, but though, in case anyone on the board has any questions of her. I think it would be more prudent to go into executive session. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's more of an employee matter, so yeah, we'll just wait and go into executive session with that, yeah.
All right, thank you, but thank you for coming, Shannon. We appreciate you being here.
Ms. Lewis?
Just one question for clarity. Did you say the other person decided to, and what was her name? Was that Thompson?
She had given us a start date.
And was that Thompson, or is that,
No, this is Ms. Thompson.
okay, I got you.
Right? That's your last name? Yeah, this is Ms. Thompson. No.
No, I just agree that executive session would be good and a productive use of time.
Okay. You have anything finance?
Oh, can I just ask Ms. Richard? We talked a little bit, is Ms. Doty going to be informed that
She's already been informed.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, Ms. Doty's been in the loop the entire time.
Ms. Richards, are you good on? Ms. Costa, I didn't know if you had anything. You don't have to have anything. I just didn't know.
Sure, no, I will just provide a quick budget overview to let you know where we're at with respect to our overall budget. Earlier this evening, I'm sorry, as most of you all, our computer passwords are expiring, so I had a harder time getting into work today with some of the VPN things. So as of today, there is a remaining balance of $202,879, $202,879 in a remaining budget for the board. I want to make an important note that of that 202, almost 203,000, 158,000 of that is earmarked specifically for labor categories. And so that includes full-time wages, part-time wages, overtime, payout leave, fringe benefits, medical care, employer contributions, et cetera. So that kind of gives you a kind of a sense as to where we're at as of today. I was not able to do, I guess, a cost analysis with respect to what our remaining budget would be or could be at the end of the year, given that there's just a lot up in the air with respect to some of our auditor, with our auditor position, our deputy auditor position, hiring and actual like onboarding dates. So I just didn't even go down the rabbit hole of seeking to speculate as to, I guess, what our budget could look like at the end of the year if we hired based on hypothetical dates. But if there is, I guess, an update with respect to where we're at or on some of those things, then I can include that with respect to our next update. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
I don't see us hiring a deputy auditor. There's, what, 2 months left in this year? I don't see us hiring a deputy auditor between now and then. So that's a salary, that's an open salary. An auditor, with respect to under the city's confines of the city, you know, that background check might take 6 weeks, 8 weeks, just like all the others have taken. So I think you need to consider those too.
Yeah, I am a hopeful individual, but I am skeptical of everything and everyone. So with that said, I think that us actually being able to get those roles hired in before the end of the year is a very optimistic thought and an aspirational goal. But I think the reality is that there will be remaining budget dollars that won't be spent down on labor, and so the board we should be thinking critically with respect to how best we can utilize any remaining budget dollars to best position ourselves to be effective going into the next year.
I think we kind of know what the best way to utilize those.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Mr. Skippon.
Mr. Costa, I just want to make sure I understand this. Where we have the substantial negative budget adjustments that put particular line items like travel, safety equipment into negative, are those essentially line item transfers?
Yes, those reflect some line item transfers. Some of the line items have actually been spent down. So where you see there was a spending for property rental with respect to the event that we had, and then also expenses that happened and occurred for food and some of the computer purchases. There was actually an overage on. Let me see. On
What property rental?
food. So we rented the Mason CLC.
There was no cost for that.
Okay. Well, I will ensure that that's updated then, because it does show that we undertook the cost there. So
Are you
I will-
talking about maybe the Akron Summit Action Agency when you guys went there? Are you talking about that rental?
Nope.
Okay.
I was gonna say, we didn't pay anything for that as well, too. So I will work with finance to get that updated.
Who inputs this data?
So I've got access to like oversee the budget, well, to view the budget, but for the most part, it is I've been working with Steve Fricker as the finance director, and so Steve, I know, has got the overarching authority to like move and kind of facilitate some of these transfers that appear here. Especially with respect to figuring out where specific budget items, like accounts, were gonna come from the city.
Right.
Like, yeah.
So he puts these numbers here,
Yeah.
not you. Got it.
Yeah, like interfund, I mean, mailings and, I mean, there's stuff on here that's coming out of our budget that we're not using.
But there were also resources that were provided for us on behalf of the city that needed to be accounted for. So that's where you see some of those transfers occurring. Accounts that were charged in other places, but then there needed to be adjustments to it. And so that's reflected here.
And then what was the amount you said for wages earmarked, 150?
158,719, and I calculated that by adding up line items 6110 through line item 62240.
Thank you.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the first 8 line items that appear in the budget that was distributed.
Mr. Costa, I just have one clarifying question. Is it also safe to assume that some of these expenditures were from before the board was seated because the Office of the Independent Auditor, their funds are pulled from these as well? So would that be demonstrated in this report that you shared with us for some of the things like the mailing, when we look at other items such as that?
That's my understanding. I will clarify and try to get an exact number amount as to what have been spent down prior to us being seated. But that's my understanding.
Yeah, where did our board come from? I mean, where did our board budget come from? Because I see like journal expenses, 2,050, what's that?
So the charter authorized, the charter that created our board authorized that there be a budget and that the budget be at least $100,000 on an annual basis. The budget that we have here is the budget that was provided and that was transferred under a separate account. Originally, like the items were being charged to another budget account, like under the city, which I believe is like a miscellaneous mayoral fund, and that those funds were then transferred over into our account once our account was created under the city.
Mr. Costa, I think I'm going back to something Mr. Gippin said. Is there any way, because we're not the ones inputting this information, but is there any way before some of these things get inputted that we can get almost like maybe a report out from Mr. Fricker? Like, because when it came from the building, what I'm hearing Ms. Lewis say is that we wasn't charged for the building, but it came out of our budget. So I just feel like if there could be some type of a checks and balance to say, hey, here goes, I'm just saying, 2 items for the month of October that we're gonna bill for, and just kind of do a checks and balance with us to make sure, oh man, yeah, we did that, we own that, and then allow that to happen versus him just kind of going in and making changes to it without us knowing it before time. Because, I mean, if we wasn't charged for Mason, which would make sense because it is an Akron Public School, which is a CLC, which I don't think some of those things happen. I'm just trying to understand how can we, just to bring about clarity of us understanding, knowing before it hits or takes away from our budget.
Sure. So that one in particular was a little bit of a, kind of an oversight and an error on my part. It was, I guess, my misunderstanding that we were going to be paying for Mason like upfront. So I had submitted a reimbursement for the costs that I thought were being spent for Mason, but then I got an update from Ms. Lewis that we didn't have to actually pay for that.
Okay.
And so I think once that that correction occurred, it just hasn't been updated to our actual budget.
Okay.
But to address the underlying question, I think we could, I guess, just request that we receive some type of like notification within Workday if there's been changes with respect to like transfers under the account.
Yeah. I think that way, I think to your point, Mr. Gippen, like if we're not entering in the stuff, we have to know what's getting entered and why it's getting entered. That's why, and I think just a simple notification just would
Because
be
it was
helpful.
my understanding that, I think not, maybe this week, maybe, I'm not sure, one of our board members was finally paid for the food she bought for our retreat. She was finally reimbursed for it after all this time, and now the second retreat's coming up.
I was gonna say, I will take the onus for that one as well too. It's been a little bit of a process, like working out the reimbursement process with the city.
Is there any more questions or comments for Mr. Costa?
Yeah, I have one. Based on all your yearly projections, do you project that we will have a surplus of money left over? Because if we do, we'll lose it for next year. So it has to be spent somewhere.
Yes, it's most likely that there will be a surplus.
Okay, so we should probably talk about how that's to be spent.
Yeah, Mr. Costa said before, we need to think about how it is we're going to utilize those funds. And so I think that's something, and what I would ask is possibly from going back to your subcommittees, if each subcommittee kind of think about how to utilize maybe some of these funds, it may be a thing where, I don't know, Mr. Costa and Mr. Gippen and Ms. Castle, as you all are doing some of this governance work and as you are working with Mr. Lee's class, I don't know if there's an opportunity to have something with them and serve them refreshments or some type of way.
So I know that we talked about this a little bit in governance, and that we know for a fact that where we're going to want to invest and spend is on the website creation.
Okay.
And that'll probably be the biggest.
I forgot a topic.
Okay. We'll go back to you, Ms. Given. Go ahead and finish.
No, I was going to say that's just kind of the one thing that we've identified and already said that, to the extent, we should, we also kind of talked website creation and governance, independent website with respect to the city's rollout of the updated websites that the city of Akron will have. And so we thought that it might make sense to press the pause button with respect to pursuing any particular quote that we'd received for website creation until we've got a better understanding as to how the improved City of Akron website is going to work and what the functionalities there are. The specific thinking is whether or not we could be allocated control to manage our webpage under the City of Akron specifically. and if we can maintain a sense of autonomy with respect to that webpage. And if that's not the case, then I think we're of the feeling that we should pursue creating our own independent webpage.
That was gonna be my question. Why can't we just piggyback our webpage onto the already established City of Akron website? You know, we're being treated as another piece of legislative body of the City of Akron, the way things are going. So why can't we just piggyback our website onto the City of Akron's already established website?
I think that's a pretty astute observation that you just made there, and so I'm going to snap to that.
Well, I mean, we're having to hire people and, you know.
I think it's just a consideration of cost analysis. Like, is it more effective for us to, well, obviously it's cheaper to piggyback off of the City of Akron's website, but since we are a independent review board, there are some, I think, benefits with respect to us having our own webpage that we can store and kind of put out content. I think the biggest advantage being that us having the control to update things and ensure that it gets done in a timely manner, especially with respect to us putting out the public notices that we need, but then also not duplicating some of the internal communications to get some of the things done. And so, and I think there are other advantages of it as well too, with respect to having a platform that we can directly engage with people and put up information. But those are just my thoughts, and I welcome, you know, others on the conversation. Ms. Lewis, you look like you kind of had some things and some thoughts.
Anything, Ms. Castle? And I think too, along with some of those costs of the website, I know, and I can't, and maybe Ms. Lewis, you're going to report out on this in your subcommittee, but I know that there was talks about a survey and having someone, I think, organization to create some type of survey. I'm just saying, when we talk about cost, but I do think each subcommittee should think about things within their subcommittee that they may want to use some resources for before we get out of the end of the year as a possibility. So just kind of want to throw that out there if we are going to have some funding left to see what that could look like and possibly bring that back to our next meeting, just so we can start kind of planning and thinking ahead of different creative ideas or different things. So just want to use that, say that.
Can I go back?
And just one quick response about why the independent website. It's something that I think citizens that we've talked to have kind of voiced as something that they wanted to see, just being transparent.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I just didn't understand why, since we're another legislative body, it seemed to be functioning as another legislative body of the City of Akron, why we couldn't just go under the City of Akron's website. I'm not against it. It's just a question. But I do have another, I won't have a question for you. I have to go back. What happened with the, and I apologize for coming back with this so late, but the law students, you guys were looking at some law students to help with that project that you were talking about.
Yes.
Where's that going? Do we have any law student volunteers?
That was the meeting I was talking about with Professor Lee's class. The young lady is in that class.
Okay,
So she's she's leading a team, one of the teams.
okay.
So no, that's all underway. That's the help we're expecting to get.
And you still need, okay, but you
No.
still need board members to take on those tasks?
Oh, yes. Yeah. They're going to be, I mean, they're doing it from a law student perspective.
Okay.
Which means it's research focused, and that's of huge benefit to us because they're able to go out and get information both from the legal academic world and case law, but also maybe some broader things that aren't specifically legal. But no, it's going to take a lot of board member work on each of those topics. It's just we're going to have help.
Mr. Gippen, you said you remembered one topic.
That was it. I'd forgotten that website lives in governance,
Okay.
but Mr. Costa covered it.
All righty. Thank you so much, Ms. Costa, for your report out and your time.
My pleasure.
Moving on to item C under our subcommittees is the community engagement. Ms. Lewis?
Thank you. So in the way of networking opportunities, we were able to attend the Faith in Blue event at Hardesty Park, and had the opportunity to meet and exchange contact information and meet some of the potential partners there, agencies and community organizations. Also had an opportunity to capture some candid pictures, and I want to be able to continue to do that as we interact with various partners and agencies and things of that nature. And the second thing we were able to do, we were invited as a board to share information regarding the role of the board and to participate in a Q&A session at what they call the Yours and Mine United Civic Organization meeting. And that was held at Robinson Community Learning Center on last Thursday. Thank you to those who were able to come and participate, and thank you to the organizers for inviting us. It was an opportunity for us to gain insight as to the degree people were eager to exchange and broaden their knowledge base and ask questions and share comments and some concerns. And so that was, I thought, productive. It also helped to shed light on how important our job is to listen and inform and provide accurate information. And the importance of providing alternative ways to engage and to provide accessible information and updates. And I can't stress enough the importance for us to have an independent website because we are an external independent board, and since we have the budget, I think we need to stick with that. One of the things I'd like to propose also going forward is to formulate a one-page kind of frequently asked questions and put that on our website, and also have that with us when we go, maybe like 10 frequently asked questions, because those kind of questions and concerns come up again as we engage with the community and have opportunities in the future. And lastly, I hope you had an opportunity, although I did share it kind of late, to read that article. And the article that I sent talks about the city of Dallas, I believe, that looked into expanding their powers with regard to oversight boards and the length of time it took and the persons that were on board. Surprisingly, the police department was on board and the council. So if you get an opportunity, I did send that to you as an FYI. And that's it for me. If you got any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Lewis? Thank you so much, Ms. Lewis, for your time.
I like the idea of the FAQ, and thanks for sending out that article as well. Really interesting.
When is the committee expected to meet next then? When, where?
We will be meeting next Thursday at the Maple Valley Public Library, 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go into new business, which is item 6. First thing on the new business is streamlining designation of communication point person. We put that on there?
So for these, all the 3 new business items, those were misread. So I think we might want to table those until she's present.
Absolutely.
For what it's worth, I want to make sure I'm kind of okay with everybody on this. I mean, Ms. Huntsman did a story, a very good story the other day, and I had spoken with her about that and was quoted, and from time to time I've spoken with Beacon Journal reporter particularly and others. If I should not be doing that, if that's the point of this, I don't want to overstep my bounds, but.
Yeah. I don't know, Mr. Gippin.
All right.
Yeah, with Ms. Reed not being here, it's kind of hard
Okay,
to
right.
know where she's coming from.
Okay, well, maybe I'll talk with her and see
Okay.
what's up, what her concern is.
All right. Yeah, I'm okay with tabling it. We have a motion to table it for next week. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
No second.
Second.
Anaskevich?
Yes.
Gippin? Yes. Peoples? Lewis?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Thank you. Right, so we're going to go into old business, the NACO conference.
That was misread as well.
All righty. Tabling it all. All right.
Same with B, accepting invitations for engagements. That being tabled
I
also?
don't have B on mine.
All of the new business, all 3 of those items were presented by Ms. Reed.
Okay, so
as well as old business, the NACO conference.
okay. Isn't that conference in a week and a half?
So I think, if I remember correctly, Ms. Reed called me about this, and Ms. Reed's discussion is she thinks it would be a good idea to send Mr. Fields.
Yes, I agree.
And so, if you'd like to make a motion, is there any other discussion?
Well, make the motion, then I'll comment.
I'll make a motion that we send our contracted independent auditor, Mr. Fields, to the NACO conference along with Mr. Gippen.
Make a
That
second.
way,
Is there a second? I'll make a second.
Just my reaction to this, my understanding from Mr. Fields and talking and having seen his business, I've had no understanding that Mr. Fields has any interest in becoming our auditor, which is a full-time job. So that I don't know that it's a productive use of our funds for him to go. It would be, if somehow, I think we had this conversation 2 weeks ago, if we were able to get our permanent auditor on board, by the time of the conference, which starts the 12th of November.
that is not going to happen.
Well, if it were to happen, hypothetically, that would have been excellent. And there's actually the first half day is for agency directors. So that would be a good thing, but with respect to Mr. Fields, I think it is not a productive use of our money that if he's not going to be continuing in the role.
Well, you don't know that. None of us know that. And to say not to send the person who is actively acting as our auditor at this time to not go and gain more knowledge on how he can do this work, not knowing how long he's going to have to do this work, to say not to send him, but to wait for someone that we hire permanently that might end up being 6-8 months from now, I don't even think that makes sense.
Can we hear from Mr. Fields?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, we're talking about him and around him. Mr. Fields, do you have the capacity within your workday? How long is the conference?
Oh, it's 3.5 days.
3.5 days.
Well, really 4 days. I mean, it starts on Sunday morning with the session for agency directors, and continues to noon on the Thursday.
Okay. Mr. Fields, are you interested in going, and do you have the capacity to attend if we send you, if we vote?
I have the capacity to attend. I guess my only issue, as Mr. Gippen said, would be... Oh. Yes, I have the capacity to attend, but as Mr. Gippen indicated, I'm interim, so I don't know. I'm able to go.
Okay, so,
Let me say,
hold 1 second. 1 second, Ms. Saniskevich. Go ahead, Mr. Costa.
Mr. Fields, is it your intent to apply for the independent auditor position?
No.
Okay.
I likewise have the concern as to what the best return on the investment is, or more so just the best use of our budget dollars. While there seems to be a good likelihood that your contract could be renewed as like for the additional period of time allocated, and the funds which we did earmark, I could see the benefit with respect to the information that you bring back and you disseminate to the board with respect to your experience. But ideally, we want to spend the money and get the largest return on the investment. And so I'm kind of torn about the subject, to be completely honest. But then again, I don't have the capacity to go myself too, and our board needs all the expertise and I think additional substantive experience that is going to add to our ability to continue doing improved work. So I'm a little bit torn about it, and so I just wanted to know your intent on an ongoing basis if you were interested in applying the auditor position.
now, I also want to say, you don't have to stay the whole time either. You can look at the agenda, and I believe it was already emailed to you, the NACO agenda, and look at what areas that you think will help enhance the work that you're already
Ms.
doing
Hanscott,
for us.
No, I'm not saying that you, that's probably more of a offline conversation to have that with him, because just what I'm, just what I'm receiving from you, Mr. Fields, is you're kind of like, hey, if I'm not going to be in this position, but tell me something, Mr. Costa, because you said this before. If we renew his, when will we know if we have to renew his contract? Or HR?
It would be, what, 12 weeks out from the effective date of your, of
Yeah,
the
I believe it's
contract that we
towards the end of
executed?
November.
In November?
Yeah,
And
let me double check.
to renew, we renew for another 3 months?
Yes.
It's a 3-month contract.
Okay.
So
So,
we could effectively renew the contract, most probably renew it one more time, and it could actually even go a third time, depending on what we get.
The contract contemplates one renewal term to be a 12-week period.
I'm sorry?
The contract provided for one renewal term for an additional 12-week period. Anything beyond that, we would need to amend that contract.
so going back to some of the wording that I've heard as far as a return on investment, I guess technically, probably after tonight, we're gonna have one full-time employee. Is that true to say that, Ms. Anaskevich?
Administrative assistant.
Okay.
I mean, this would be more for Beverly to talk about, but I mean, I don't know that we won't have our auditor in place by the end of November.
Come on.
Yeah, no, just hold on, Ms. Ann. And I'm not disagreeing with that, Mr. Gippman. We actually could. I agree with you. I'm not debating that at all. I think too, I'm just looking at it from a perspective of if we want the knowledge, and we want the knowledge in the office, and it's not Mr. Fields, and if we have an admin assistant, why not send the admin assistant? If we want the knowledge in the office. And I'm just offering that as another suggestion. That's all. Yes,
That's a
I
decent
have a
suggestion.
question. A question. So does the person have to be on the board? Can it be a friend or?
somebody from the public?
That makes even less sense.
No, I think it has to be somebody affiliated with the
That
board.
makes even less
the agency.
sense if you're
Just
talking
a
about
question.
expenditure.
Just a question. Thank you.
Can we be respectful
Yeah,
of everybody?
absolutely.
Just give everybody a chance to get out their idea.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, again, I'd welcome to have, particularly if we had, if the auditor were able to do it, I think it would be very, very productive, and to meet people, to have the chance to have that interaction with folks. I have looked again at the agenda, and I'm my initial fear that there would be more that would be useful for the board than I could attend is probably not going to be the case. There's an entire day where the parallel presentations are on corrections and things like that. So I don't know that we're going to have a great loss if no one else can go. I think it'd be better if someone else can. I just have the caution that it's it may not be productive for us, and it's probably at this point, with all the cost of the conference itself is higher than it was. I mean, we're probably looking at $3,000 to $3,500.
I don't think it makes sense to have just one person go. We need more than one perspective. You can't. There's no way you can possibly go to all of the sessions that are taking place, all of the classes that are taking place. To have you go to some classes and have someone else go to other classes, that's the best. To me, that's the best bang for our buck. Is to have more than one person go, bring back more than one perspective, bring back more knowledge instead of just knowledge that only one person can absorb, bringing back knowledge that two people have absorbed.
Mr. Gippin, of the topics at the conference, are any of them tied into the 5 topic focus that we have? that governance?
Oh, I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, without recalling specifically, but definitely they are. They're very useful topics.
Okay, I would just like for the board to consider if none of us else on the board besides Ms. Gibbon has the capacity, if we do have an admin assistant, I would just like for us to think about sending that individual, or at least consider it. Because it's just knowledge coming into the department, and the knowledge is not necessarily for just the individual. The knowledge is for the department and for us as a board. So maybe that's if you will, a compromise. So whether it's the independent auditor, deputy auditor, or an admin assistant, if we have someone hired in as full-time by that time, somebody from that department should go. That would be my suggestion.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think we should just diary when the, or calendar when the deadline is for the registration. And by then, we just need to sign up, you know, whether that be the administrative assistant that we have at that time or an auditor.
Yep.
I didn't look at the deadline, I mean, but I think there's probably a fair amount of leeway. It's a big conference at a big hotel. I don't know that they're gonna sell out. But we should look, we should find out when that is.
Yeah, we're looking over here, we don't see a deadline per se, so, okay. All right. So I need to make that a motion that we're gonna send somebody from, okay. I make a motion, Mr. Gibbon?
Well, it does no harm, but we don't really have anybody at this point.
Okay, all right.
We do have a motion and a second on the table, so do we need to move forward with the vote for that?
Oh, for well, yeah, we do. So, well, the motion is as far as Mr. Fields. That was the motion on the floor, and it was seconded. So we're gonna roll call vote that. Aniskevich?
Yes?
Gippin?
No.
Peebles? No. Lewis?
No.
Castle?
No.
Costa?
No.
Richards?
No.
Boyd? No. Okay. All right. I like to.
Chairman, I would just suggest that we'll have time enough. We should check the deadline, but let's see what happens tonight and after.
Okay. Awesome. I'm gonna make a motion to go into executive session. Can I get a second?
Second.
To discuss personnel matters.
To discuss personnel
Yes.
matters concerning the Office of the Independent Auditor. Aniskevich?
Yes.
Gibbon?
Yes.
Peebles? Lewis?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Boyd? Yes. Thank you.
Ms. Sanskrit, since we're going to do an executive session.
They're just gonna mute
I'll
us.
call you.
Yeah, I'll be
Okay.
in my office.
Sully, is anybody out there? Seems good to me, I don't know.
You know what?
Yes.
Castle, Costa?
Yes, yes.
Richards? Yes.
I'll go turn the mic.
No, we're back
You
on.
wanna
We
turn
just
off the mic?
muted. We just turned them off. You can turn.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought we still had to turn them on up there. We don't have to turn them on up there
I
anymore?
guess Matt
Okay,
did some kind of magic, I don't know.
okay.
Good?
I would like to bring forth a motion for the Police Oversight Board to extend an offer of employment to Shannon Thomas for the Administrative 2 position, Admin 3 position.
Get a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Anaskevich?
Yes.
Gippin?
Yes.
Peebles?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Costa?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Boyd, yes. Motion passes. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
All, Gibbon?
Yes.
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 Lewis?
Yes.
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 Yes. Have a good evening, everyone.